Now from WATN, it's Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Welcome to Local 24 This Week. I am Richard Ransom. We're here every Sunday at 9 a.m. with an encore at 10:35 p.m., bringing you the real story behind the week's big stories. And we have several big stories to talk about today. Cops under investigation, some good investigative journalism uncovers a Memphis police lieutenant's early retirement. Sure worked out nicely for him, but not so much for the integrity of the police department. Now we learn he's on a list of 18 other bad apples being investigated by DA Amy Wyrick. MLGW rate hike. The city's utility is not giving up hopes of convincing city council to raise your electricity rates, so it dropped its proposed monthly increase by a whopping 2 cents. I have a feeling we'll get a response worth a lot more than that from my panel today. And it's a tax. Sorry, Shelby County commissioners who want to raise the wheel tax by $20 to pay for fixing MATA. You've decided to call it a public transportation fee instead, but it's still a tax. We'll talk about how MATA supporters have bungled their efforts so far. In a moment, Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford and political consultant Susan Nadler-Thorpe will be joining me. But we start tonight with 2 of the 6 freshman Memphis City Council members who were just sworn in, Rhonda Logan and J.B. Smiley Jr. Thanks, both of you, for being here, and congratulations on your wins.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Looking forward to being on City Council?
Absolutely.
Yeah, she's right on it.
Absolutely.
What do you see as maybe different or distinctive about your freshman class, so to speak, that you see some inroads being made or changes being made that would be different from city councils that preceded you? Rhonda, you first.
Well, most of the new city councilmen come from grassroots. We come from nonprofits and just there for the people, and that's a fresh new look. We aren't long-time or professional politicians or anything like that. We're just public servants, just servant leaders, and here for the people.
Very good. How about you, Jay?
And to add to that, so we also came in unified. Thinking about my race, as soon as my election was over, I threw my support behind both Michael and Councilwoman Logan, because I think it's necessary for us to come in unified and making sure that we're always on the same page, especially when it comes to concerns of the people.
Very good. So I want to ask you about a couple of hot issues that you're already inheriting. You haven't been on the city council very long, but there's a lot of conversation about what's happened surrounding the Memphis Police Department. Lieutenant Eric Kelly, you're aware of the story, the fat pension he got, $3,600 a month for the rest of his life to retire after being accused of some severe misconduct. And now we learned there may be more than a dozen others, not only Memphis Police, but Shelby County deputies too. DA Amy Wyrick is investigating. So it brings up the issue, I think, of what role does city council have here, if any? We know that the issue of how much power the Citizens Law Enforcement Review Board, which was the public entity that allowed citizens to have some kind of role over whether officers are hired or fired, has been severely curtailed. In fact, it really doesn't need to exist anymore because it's been so limited. Do you think it's time for city council to revisit that and maybe give citizens more of a voice here in light of some of the developments this week? Rhonda?
Yes, I do. I am always a proponent for oversight, for transparency, and by the citizens. And I think the Citizens Club is an excellent opportunity to maintain that and to make certain that we are. I do, hope that we get to revisit that, because I do think they offered a level of transparency and accountability there that would make the citizens of Memphis proud of our first responders, proud of our policemen.
JB, I don't know too. Yeah, I understand. What do you hear from your constituents? And first of all, I think it's important to say it's easy to label all cops as bad cops, and we know that's not the case. But there are enough instances, enough cases where it seems to point to corruption and cover-up. And in fact, I don't think we'd know about this lieutenant if it were not for some investigative journalism that exposed what we've found out in the last week or so. What are you hearing from your constituents, and do you agree with Rhonda?
Well, Councilwoman Logan is absolutely right. I think when we look at this issue, we have to make sure we have citizen involvement. And right now, CLERB as it currently exists is virtually an advisory board that no one listens to, and that's a problem. If we're not listening to the people, we're not serving the will of the people, we're not doing our job. So to limit CLERB in the way it is, it doesn't do anyone any good.
So what do we do when you have state lawmakers who are kind of putting the heavy hand on municipal governments like Nashville, like Memphis, saying we don't want you to mess around too much with the autonomy that police departments have.
We do what we're elected to do. We advocate for our constituency. If our constituency says that we want clerk to have more oversight, more say-so, we fight for that. We know who the state lawmakers are. We can call them. We can call on our other colleagues in Shelby County and say, look, this is what we want. This is what we're fighting for. Now tell us what we need to do to make sure this happens.
Let me move on to Memphis, generally speaking, just what you see maybe as some of the broader challenges, things you would like to take up in this your first term here. Hopefully you'll have 2 terms. I'm sure you're hoping to be 2.
Absolutely.
But nonetheless, you know, we're in a really good time in Memphis. And in fact, since I've been here in '94, I don't know that there's been a time where I've seen more civic pride, where I've seen more stuff in the pipeline, development, and yet there is this nagging problem with it's bypassing a lot of folks by, and the money isn't being spread around evenly. What are your thoughts on what can be done about that? And do you think maybe the natural flow is that it does start downtown and then it grows out from there? Let's start with you on this one, JB.
Well, so, you know, I am so for the development downtown, but, you know, for me, coming from, you know, South Memphis and Whitehaven area, those communities are not seeing the development. So the things that I would like to see going forward is, how about anchors in those communities? If we just look at 38126, which is like a mile from downtown, that community is one of the poorest zip codes in the state of Tennessee, yet that community has not been serviced or served the same way that downtown's been served. So we have to pay particular attention to those communities and making sure those communities have the resources they need so they can expand and continue to blossom and be, you know, experience the momentum that downtown's experiencing. So we have to fight for those underserved communities and make sure those underserved communities have resources and, you know, the services that they need.
Councilwoman Logan, your district is primarily Raleigh, which has gotten some good news lately with there's the Nike facility that's already there, but now Amazon looking at a promising 1,000 jobs with a massive warehouse there. Do you feel like things are turning in the right direction in your district?
Well, I do, and not only Raleigh, but Cordova as well.
Yes.
is part of my district. And I do feel that there are great things happening in Raleigh, and I feel like there are already economic anchors in Cordova. However, I want to make certain that the people, the constituents, are a part of the process. I think it's very important for the people that live there to be a part of that. Now that we're having Project Iris and we have Nike and those things, let's activate those anchors and make certain that they're there improving the quality of life for the people that actually live in the district. I think it's great, it's imperative that we pair all of the development with the people and make sure that they understand that they are part of the process as well. And the more engaged and involved they are, and the more they're a part of the process, I think the more it will matter to their everyday lifestyle.
Absolutely. And to add to that, so I think, you know, council in the past, well, some of the council members in the past, and it's my opinion that they've pushed their own agenda as opposed to having real involvement from the people. And I think this council, you will see a sharp contrast in terms of how much we involve the people. I think at least 4 or 5 of us have already planned listening tours. It's not a town hall meeting where we, you know, where we come out and say, this is what we're going to do. We want to hear from you so that we can make sure that our agenda is your agenda.
Absolutely.
The MLGW rate hike, obviously, it would impact all of your constituents, and there's been, yeah, all of us, and we know that a rate hike was granted for gas as well as for water, but electricity, the last city council decided to punt that and hand it over to the next city council, which you're now considering whether to give the rate hike that MLGW is asking for. They've come back and pared it down just slightly, 2 cents. Are you inclined to vote for it or against it? And what role do you think you have as a council member to look into this other prospect out there that maybe another source needs to be looked at other than TVA for providing electricity?
Well, I think that it's incumbent upon us as City Council to look at all the options, and that, you know, though it was dropped, you know, kind of on our in our laps, for lack of a better word. We still have to make sure that we do due diligence and research, looking at all the options, looking at all the studies, looking at everything that's been done before us, you know, before we arrive, to make certain that we vote properly, and we don't, I don't want to just vote because it's upon us to do so. We need to investigate. There are so many other options out there that, each day we're hearing more about different studies or different forms of energy or different opportunities at other companies. And so I think that us taking a step back, slowing the process down a little bit just to make sure that we're making informed decisions.
JB?
Well, Councilwoman Logan is right again. we have to slow this process down. And especially for the new council members, we did not have the luxury of having, a year to hear about all the information that MLGW has presented to us. We need to make sure that we are informed every step of the way. And if we're not, we slow it down, we listen to all the parts, and then we can make an informed decision.
So it sounds like I have 2 no votes here on the rate hike, at least for the time being.
Let's see.
Okay.
We're still
learning,
And real quick, where do you stand on Jim Strickland's administration concerns that there's a lack of diversity among his top staff? You're concerned about that? Or do you think his argument is he's got more diversity than the previous administration?
Well, we've, we voted the other day on Tuesday to just take a couple of weeks to make certain that we've had a chance to sit down with everyone, as well as some of the council members wanted the opportunity to just look at the amount of diversity and how diversity is, where those areas lie. And I think taking 2 weeks to just make sure we've looked at everything is a great idea.
Yeah, and I think, government is in a place that is acting like it's supposed to act, checks and balances. And, us as a legislative body, we want to make sure we're making informed decisions. And Councilwoman Logan said the other day that, she cannot vote on an issue if she has not had the opportunity. So how can she tell her constituents that she appointed someone and she never met them? So just trying to figure it out.
Well, I like what I'm hearing. 2 city council members who realize you're new at this and you want to take your time. You're not going to be forced into anything. You're not going to be rushed into it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to make some judicious decisions that if it takes more time, so be it.
Absolutely necessary.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Councilman J.B. Smiley, thank you for your time. Councilwoman Rhonda Logan, you too.
Thank you.
Congratulations again. We'll be back with my roundtable right after this.
Thank you.
Showing off those new celebrity-style frames, huh?
Yeah, they're the hot new brand among stars like Jamie Foxx, Ashley Benson, Haley Steinfeld.
So you got 2 pairs of Privé Revaux glasses exclusively from America's Best, including a free exam for just $89.95.
Right? Can I?
Fine.
Nice smile.
I'll try. 2 pairs for $89.95. Includes a free exam. It's not just a better deal, it's America's Best. Am I smiling?
Non-attorney spokesperson.
Warning. If you or a loved one used talcum powder for years and then were diagnosed with ovarian cancer before the age of 75, call today. You may be entitled to substantial compensation. Thousands of women may have been affected. You need an attorney on your side fighting for your rights. You pay nothing unless we're successful. Don't wait. If you've been harmed, call right now. You may be entitled to substantial compensation.
Call 800-761-1754.
The music. The foot-tapping, head-bobbing, soul-saving kind. Country, blues, rock, and everything in between. Where it all started and never stopped. Heard on stages, porches, and street corners. You can't download it. You can only experience it. The soundtrack of America, made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com. The family vacation. The ones you don't just remember, but replay over and over again. When your heart skipped a beat, soul filled with melody, and eyes open to the wonders of the world. A trip that not only defines a summer, but defines a family. It's a reunion that can only be made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com.
You're watching Local 24 This Week with Richard Ransom.
Time now for our panel discussion on Local 24 This Week. Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford is here, as well as political consultant Susan Adler-Thorpe with Thorpe Communications. So you two, let's get right to this controversy over Lieutenant Eric Kelly and what it's exposing about other officers, law enforcement officers, both within the MPD and the Shelby County Sheriff's Office. Amy Wyrick says she's concerned enough that she's put all these cases of handled by some 18 officers that are on a list of bad apple officers that could impact up to thousands of cases. I mean, that's a lot, Otis.
Oh, it is. It is. And to Amy Wirey's credit, she has appointed Paul Goodman to run this new unit. He's a veteran of the District Attorney's Office, smart guy, and I think he'll do a good job. He won't show any favors here, and he will look into these things. And if there's anything with these cases, any compromise, he'll get to it. But having said all that, Richard, this is a terrible story for local law enforcement, both on the police side and really on the district attorney side too, if you believe what Kelly said, which was, and I know he's in trouble here, so he's probably trying to bring everybody down with him, but he said that he and prosecutors fabricated charges against people, including this young lady that he had an affair with, in order to get her to cooperate. If that's true and that they've done that with other cases, that's a problem. Plus, you mentioned the investigative reporting part of this, and we have to give credit where credit is due. This story would never have come to light had it not been for good investigative reporting, particularly by Mark Paraskier at the Institute for Public Service Reporting.
And that's the thing. I mean, there was basically a cover-up here about what happened. And now we're finding out about it and realizing that this would be symptomatic of a much deeper problem.
Well, it could very well be. I mean, there are 17 other cases, I believe, that they're going to take apart, look at, and they should. I mean, you know, in fairness to the police department, there are a few bad apples. But in any business, anywhere, you're always going to find a few bad apples. But because policemen are human beings, just like we are, and some have their failures, but they are trained. But the thing about this with the police force, they are trained and they're paid to protect our safety and our constitutional right to due process and to a fair trial. And these 18 cases, there are some people who are sitting in jail now and whose due process may have been impinged because of a bad decision by a policeman. We're going to find out. And if there's a prosecutor involved, we're going to find that out too.
And speaking quickly, speaking of being paid, that raises another issue here because he resigned and there will be no charges, he gets a pretty cushy pension for the rest of his life.
He got a $58,000 check, and he gets $3,600 a month for the rest of his life.
Exactly.
That's right.
And that, you know, leaves a sour taste in people's mouths at a time when we all agree police officers should get paid, they should get, you know, get the benefit of the doubt on salaries and stuff like that. This undermines that.
Let's go higher up the food chain. Director Rawlings, Mayor Strickland, what's the political fallout? How much, if at all, should they be held accountable for what we've learned here?
Well, when it comes to Director Rawlings, you know, there's that old adage, the buck stops here. And if it happens on his watch, we'll have to hear from him. But again, I'm going to defend him a little bit by saying you cannot be with every cop at every moment of every day.
And he had to know about this one, didn't he?
But he has people who are under him, he has a chain of command. And that chain of command should have known and should have told him. Does he know it? We don't know yet, but we're going to find out. I think that Amy Wyrick has stepped out in the public arena in a big way. This story is not going to go away, and we're going to find out. They're going to dig as deeply as they can.
I think that, agree, I'm not going to lay all of the blame on Mayor Strickland or on Director Rawlings, but I am going to say that they both need to make it clear that you need to stop, you meaning the investigators in the police department, need to stop hiding stuff. And when reporters come around and ask for information that the public has a right to know, then don't be hiding it, don't slip it into the file and hope nobody sees it, because that's exactly what happened here. Mark Paraskier has been asking about this stuff for months, and they were stonewalling him every step of the way.
2 points I want to make. One is the value and the importance of good investigative journalism these days when people are turning to Facebook and social media for the news. This is really what helps to make a community function and function well. The other thing is there was a journalist with a commercial appeal who suggested in a story on Friday that the victims of this case, of this issue, are the other policemen. And that's, I think that's misworded. I don't think the cops or the policemen are victims of this. If you don't do anything wrong, no one's going to look at your file. Yeah. It's just as simple as that. Live by the rules, do what you're supposed to do, and nobody's going to investigate
learned that
you.
Lieutenant Kelly had been fired once before and got rehired.
Got
rehired. Exactly.
Wouldn't we all like that kind of situation? Right. I mean, all right. Well, we'll leave it there. We want to talk about the MLGW rate hike really first before we go in this segment. We saw J.T. Young. He came back to City Council and said, please reconsider this electric rate hike. I really need it for infrastructure improvements. And in fact, I'm gonna lower the increase that I had asked for before by 2 cents
per month.
Per month, saving the average utility customer a whopping quarter less than that.
Not even a quarter.
Come on.
Well, you know what you can get for 2 cents, Richard?
a lot of nothing. Right.
Nothing.
You know, people don't even look on the ground if they see 2 cents. They're not even going to pick it up.
Not these days, they don't. No, I think that, especially with this new look City Council, and you just talked to a couple of them, I think they are going to really look at this thoroughly. And I still say MLGW has a long way to go in order to get what they're really looking for with this rate increase.
Well, you know, they promised some cuts, Susan, but you and I have talked about when they did the self-examination, there wasn't a whole lot of meat there.
Well, no, the efficiency report, I remember, said that they could save something around $35 million over a period of about 5 years if they would reduce their employee force by 300 to 400 employees. And what their response was is, okay, we'll do that. We won't start it until 2021, but we're going to do this by attrition. So as people die, they just won't replace them. Well, come on. I mean, to me, that's kind of a ridiculous position to take. If you own a company and let's say you have a landscaping company and you need a truck, and it costs you $50,000, but you know you've got these 3 employees over here that, you really don't need them. Are you going to say, well, I'm just going to forego that $50,000 truck because I'm going to wait till these employees decide to retire so I can buy a truck? Of course not. That's not how you run a business, and that's not how you run a utility. If there are efficiencies to be made, then go ahead and make them. But don't ask the ratepayers to hike their utility bills while you're fat on employees and you have other issues, including the biggest problem they have is not just failing infrastructure and bad power lines and whatever, they talk falling poles. It's trees. It's vegetation. Mm-hmm. That is, according to that report, that's the biggest problem they've got in with power outages. And, you know, we're going to see it time and time again with storms.
All right, we've got to leave it there. When we come back, we'll wrap things up by talking about the wheel tax, which they don't want to call a wheel tax anymore. The County Commission is looking at right after this.
Introducing the Collector's Edition 2020 Battle for the White House chess set. Democrats stand face-to-face against Republicans, featuring President Trump and Vice President Pence, legislative leaders Pelosi, McConnell, Schumer, and McCarthy, plus members of our Supreme Court and even former presidential teams. Each piece designed with impeccable detail to look just like our political leaders. A keepsake you'll cherish for generations. Order your limited edition 2020 Battle for the White House chess set with certificate of authenticity for only $39.99. For a limited time, you can get a second chess set. Just pay a separate fee. Because the Democratic nominees are not yet known, you'll receive 2 podiums to play now. Once the candidate is selected, you will be notified to acquire the final pieces to complete your set. Don't wait. Order now.
Call 1-800-208-2313. That's 1-800-208-2313. Or visit chess2020.com now.
The experiences, the kind that take your breath away and remind you what it feels like to be alive. Catching a glimpse of life under the sea or on top of the world. Walking in the footsteps of soldiers, legends, and kings. It's a feeling, a connection that can only be made in Tennessee. Start planning at tnvacation.com.
Jessica, we need to leave right now. I need to get something. There's a meaning no one knows. Wait until we set free. So what's the empty suitcase for?
The grand prize trophy. Confidence. Pass it on.
I was born to be somebody.
Watch Richard Ransom weeknights at 5, 6, and 10.
All right, now let's talk about the MATA mess on Local 24 this week. I think all of us here agree that things need to be fixed and that it's going to cost a lot of money to do it. Mayor Lee Harris, to his credit, has taken the initiative to really spearhead this effort, but I wonder if it has been bungled from the beginning. Everything that gets proposed gets laughed at. You know, it's dead on arrival, basically. The most recent proposal is this $20 addition to the wheel tax. It was how it was first presented. And then before the meeting, they said, well, that doesn't sound very good because the wheel tax is the most unpopular tax we've ever had in Shelby County. So maybe we better change the name. Okay, well, we'll call it a public transportation fee. How about that? I don't know if it makes it any better for the public or not. I think, and I just don't, you know, he brought in some bigwigs of the business community to try to make his case, the mayor did, but I think it got lost in the weeds of they want to raise your taxes.
Well, you mentioned the other day that, you know, we had that big meeting. I think it was out in the Hickory Hill area, Parkway Village area, I believe, and most of the questions was about this fee, this wheel tax increase.
Right, the meeting was about SkyCop.
About SkyCop.
But
they did talk about
the wheel tax.
Right. But now, it has been bungled. We need a cohesive and coherent message there. We're not getting that because I think even the mayor right now, Mayor Harris, is sort of getting away from this, and he still is interested in a tax on that third vehicle that people have. So we'll see where this all goes.
I'm not sure that they've really investigated this or researched it well enough. I mean, there are other areas that we could add money onto taxes, gas taxes, vehicle registration fees, parking taxes. But the wheel tax is the most misunderstood tax that we've got. It was originated in 1987. That's when the county commission passed it. It was supposed to raise $200 million. It was for capital costs for schools, for roads. That meant the urban sprawl, suburban sprawl we were going through with the county, and for the med. The only thing the city really got from that wheel tax was money for capital costs for the med. And most of the money went to capital costs for schools and roads, but I believe it has since been absorbed into the operating budget of the county. And
that's why it's unpopular.
It's used for the budget for schools.
And that's why it's unpopular.
Yeah, the promise was it was going to go away, too.
Yeah.
And that's why people
never did. If you're going to tax people, tell people what you're taxing them for. $20 extra on the wheel tax, I'd rather do that than the first $145 that was proposed. But I'm not sure the wheel tax is really the way to go.
All right, well, you got to sell it first to the public.
Right.
They're pretty cynical right now. We'll be right back.
The sweet sound of savings. MLGW wants to remind you that there are simple ways to reduce your monthly bill. That's extra savings that could be used on people you love the most. Turning off lights and appliances when not in use is just another way to convert that wasted energy into money in your pocket. That's music to your ears and your wallet. Make the sound of savings your favorite tune. MLGW. Serving you is what we do.
I'll never forget the day our landlord called and said, read your lease. No pets allowed. My owner tells him my dog ate the lease, but that didn't work. And now I'm stuck in a shelter. But this pit bull is ready for a new crib. I'm loving, loyal, and play well with others. So don't be intimidated by all my muscles, because the biggest one I have is my heart. That's right, I said it.
Me and my boy Matt had it good. He had catnip that was off the hook. But one day, he brings a girl home, and she's allergic to cats. Every sneeze was a nail in my coffin. Now I'm in a shelter. It's decent, but they don't even have Wi-Fi.
All right, Monroe, you ready? Monroe. Here we go, the butterfly. Ready?
All right, Otis Sanford, Susan Adler Thorpe, it's always a pleasure having you on the program. My thanks to the city council members earlier as well. My thanks to you. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.